the conventional boundaries of practice to complementary disciplines, a critical proving into the specificities of program, site, function, and history essential to the creation of rigorous work. Based on research, Neri&Hu anchors its ethos in the dynamic interaction of experience, detail, material, form, and light, rather than conforming to a formulaic style. Welcome to Querétaro, Rossana, Lyndon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rossana Hu, and my partner, Lyndon Neri.
My apologies. Let me grab my phone.
Looking
And
for it as well.
the time is ticking, so I'm getting nervous. So thank you for the kind introduction. Alfonso, I want to take this opportunity to thank Alfonso, Poncho, Maria, another Alfonso. I'm getting myself confused, Carlos, and all the people involved for inviting us to come to this beautiful city. Buenos tardes. Estoy feliz de estar en Querétaro. Gracias los organizadores. Mi nombre es Chino Xian. Mi nombre es English Lyndon. Okay, that's all. That's about it. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. So the title of the talk tonight is called From Here to There. Another way to describe the notion of the in-between, the liminal, or what we commonly call tian in Chinese, or threshold in English. So, just getting used to. From here to there is also another way of defining a way of moving between spaces, the in-between, the liminal space, or what is commonly called the threshold, as I just described. From here to there is also our constant search for meaning and purpose, our search for belonging, our search for home. Home means different things to different people. It also means different things to the same person at different stages of his or her lifetime. Thresholds are important because we constantly traverse between location, not just in personal travels, but early on, my partner and I went to the US for our studies when we were younger from different parts of Asia. And we used to travel from Shanghai. We used to travel to Shanghai from the US to work on projects. But after moving and establishing our practice in Shanghai, where Rosanna's father is from, we now reverse that direction and travel to other parts of Asia, to Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and now back to the Americas, both to teach and work. Today, I want to focus on the formative projects we work on the past 15 years in China. On the screen is the exterior of our office, an office that has a very long story because we got kicked out of our old office. And within 3 months, we were asked to debunk and stay in this place. And this was not renovated, so we had to renovate while we were inside the building. I know it's completely illegal in the US, but in China, everything goes. So you enter under this big number 31, that spacious zone marks this very threshold. It's neither exterior nor interior. The notion of traversing between space, time, and practice has long been embedded in our practice. Last year, the exhibition of our studio's work in the ADAS Gallery in Berlin showed 17 years of work in progress. I said work in progress because we do believe that we are in this middle ground, this liminal space, and we're not finished, far from even knowing what we're doing. In fact, we're constantly questioning and being critical of what we do. We look back often and say to ourselves, are we doing the right thing? The lecture today will examine a series of contemporary issues in various global contexts and aims to shed light on how the firm grounds its work. This image is showing an extension to a mural museum in the Westin Hotel in the ancient city of Xi'an. I know some of you have written to our office wanting us to show this project in its extent. We have limited time, so unfortunately, I'm only going to show you this. But what's interesting about this project is that it shows that our work not only crossed between location, cultures, but also between typology. It's a museum and a hotel. while maintaining an intellectual inquiry into adaptive reuse, the role of history in reimagined spatial legibility associated with voyeurism, and also tectonics and the use of poche, a search for a connection back to the vernacular. And of course, the role of collective memory, reflective nostalgia. Our friend Manuel talked about nostalgia. We also have an interesting take on this notion of nostalgia, but also of fragments and the idea of rhinophilia. We find that identity is no longer easy to define. Are we defined by our passport, the color of our skin, the accent with which we speak? I know I spoke Spanish with a strong accent. So, or the topping we put on our pizza. A recent project in Paris, a small Italian pizza restaurant owned by a Parisian and helmed by a famous Japanese chef, designed by a Chinese firm. We are now in a world full of in-between, between here and there, a threshold that probably we are having a hard time comprehending. We cross divides like never before as people and as designers, thresholds with different variations, often crossing divides that tradition, institutions, society, or even what our profession has predetermined. In our newer projects, some of which I cannot show you, this is in Korea, that are currently on the board, are perhaps the more obvious divide. You can say perhaps they are about the past and the future, about the East and the West. Or perhaps like this chapel we are working right now, the divide might be about interior or exterior, the artifice and the landscape. Or perhaps like this factory, which is going into working drawing stage, where the divide is more about global and local, urban and rural. But other more nuanced divides we feel have over the years become themes that help us analyze our own projects. And in fact, today, we will be organizing our talk using those themes and the idea of dualities and pairings to describe many of our projects. This is the Shanghai Theater Project we did about 7 years ago, sort of invading the threshold of a theater, entry by expanding the sidewalk into the theater proper. We touch on that subject with our recent installation at the Venice Biennale last year, addressing the theme of liminality, finding an architectural articulation for the quality of ambiguity and disorientation between the threshold of old and new, outside and inside, urban and rural, refinement and roughness. As a practice, this place we call home now, Shanghai or China, sets the stage for our design explorations. This is also the title of our second monograph, Threshold Space, Time and Practice. And this also happens to be the entry of our office, that threshold that we were talking about.
So before moving to projects, which we will show, I think, six pairings, I want to set the context for you for these projects where we work, and also explain a few key concepts so you can understand the thinking behind the buildings. And forgive us if we are oversimplifying some of these concepts, and there's going to be a lot of generalization, but I think for the sake of time, we won't go really deep into, delve deeply into some of the definitions. So the notion of home, oh, I forgot to click a while ago. There, okay.
You want me to help?
So, no, it's okay. The notion of home has been at the center of our thinking, especially for us starting architecture school. So Lyndon, he did his thesis at the GSD on the first Chinatown in America called Locke. It was in California. And my thesis was on post-colonial Hong Kong. And so it may have been that sense of nostalgia that took us back to Asia. It was nearly, it was about 2000, year 2000, and we saw the city literally being demolished in front of our eyes. These are not movie sets. These are actual photos. Since 1990, 1 out of 6 families in China have been evicted and relocated. So the intense development of China has forced us to have to confront this aftermath of demolition and the erasure of traditional urban and cultural fabric. I'm not good at this. Okay, here. Oh, I should be looking there. So here we enter into a related but a more complex issue of architecture as a production of cultural meaning and identity, something Lyndon had talked about a while ago. The dichotomy of modernity and tradition seems to be contrasting opposites, but actually it's not so much opposites uh, because there may be a coexisting balance between the two extremes. Like this bronze lion from Jia Zhanghe's film in 2010 entitled I Wish I Knew. Architects like us, working in a context like Shanghai, wish we knew the answers. But like the film's magnificent scenery, when faced with loss and destruction, we often retreat back to nostalgia. And I was really happy to see nostalgia being kind of a common thread between these different presentations here. So here's Falana Bohm. She wrote extensively about this in The Future of Nostalgia. It's a book that she published. And she called this type of attitude for traditional preservation restorative nostalgia, a literal reconstruction of the lost of home. Another way to think about nostalgia, however, is reflective nostalgia, which is more a longing for home, even if you may never arrive home. And the relationship between nostalgia and home is that the word nostalgia actually is a Greek-rooted word meaning sickness for home. So because you want to go home and you're so sick, you actually get sick. You actually think it's like a medical condition, or at least when the word was devised. So in the sense for, I think, as designers, reflective nostalgia is much more interesting because it's not about actually going home, but it's about the process of going home. And we find that nostalgia is strangely similar to the Eastern idea of ruins, as we learn in Chinese art history. The English word for ruin originated in the idea of falling, so like stones falling down. And on the left is Roman ruins of the Forum. This material impact of fallen stone is what makes the ruin beautiful and creates this romantic notion of ruins as a visual aesthetic. But we turn to the right image, a painting by Shi Tao in his Yellow Mountain series. What material remnant is missing, or that material remnant is missing in this painting about ruins? There's no building or stones that are present anywhere. Whereas the Chinese notion of ruin is less overtly tied to visual remnants, it is instead evoked through an absence and through voids. And here the imagery of ancient tree rather than building or fallen stones symbolizes both death, decay, as well as rebirth. And what does this mean, you say? It means that the concept of ruin in China is an internalized concept and not the romantic aesthetic that we have learned. And so the ruins are profoundly internalized in our literary tradition through poetry or through painting, but not really through buildings. So I spend time on these two insights, namely reflective nostalgia and the internalized notion of ruins, because they inspire us to look at the past differently and gave us alternative strategies to reconfigure historic remnants. And let me start here with a quote by literary critic Terence Hawkes. The true nature of things may be said to lie not in things themselves, but in the relationships which we construct and then perceive between them. So that's why, from here to there, threshold, pairings of ideas. So I'm speaking on projects here, and this is the first pairing. We're using pairing so you understand why these ideas relate to the projects and also how these projects relate to their ideas as well as each other. And to first understand this duality, this preserve and demolish, we want to show you the Chinese phrase 舍得. It's composed of two characters, which is not here because you won't understand it anyway. But it means shed. The first word means to shed, to give up, and the second word is actually to receive. So it looks like it might be contradicting, but together they mean a willingness to let go. So this points to a paradoxical sentiment that means both erasure and progress. And this term creative destruction is a theory originated by economist Joseph Schumpeter has been used to describe the condition of modern Chinese cities where demolition operates alongside rapid development. In our adaptive reuse projects, the ruin operates as the muse, non-romantic relics from the past. Often they are useless leftovers in the city, and the muse in question does not always follow a conventional set of aesthetics nor value designations like this first project, Waterhouse in Shanghai. So this is located on the Bund of Shanghai, and if you have been to Shanghai, everybody goes to the Bund, and it's this kind of glorious past of the beautiful Shanghai. But in fact, our site is here, not that part of Bund. It's on the other side of Bund, and this is a former Japanese police headquarters. As one of our earliest architectural works, we were taken by the visual cues that prompted us to try a different kind of approach to working with an urban relic. Showing you some images of what the project actually looks like when we finish. And I will move very quickly to a short film. So this is that ruin, which operates as the muse to elicit visceral experiences, to connect the city to its past. It's not so much about saving any significant history, but just that a useless remnant like this Japanese warehouse could be somewhat preserved and turned to something useful. This is the main entry. And after you enter that door, you arrive at the lobby in this 19-room boutique hotel. Calvino once wrote in Invisible Cities, arriving at each new city, the traveler finds again a past of his that he did not know he had. The foreignness of what you no longer are or no longer possess lies in wait for you in foreign, unpossessed places. And the architectural concept behind the renovation rests on a clear contrast of what is old and what is new. And also this blurring of the exterior and exterior, blending the public and the private zones together, creating a disorienting and refreshing journey. Each of the 19 rooms are entirely unique in the size, the layout, and the views that it offers. From this room, you can see out to the Huangpu River, which is where the building sits, so that the top floors, the fourth and the roof level, are made in Portland steel, echoing the ships like this one that frequently pass by. This is a very busy, very vibrant working port city. Across the river is Pudong, which is the new part of Shanghai. The rooftop here overlooks the Pudong high-rises and offers an herbal garden, where you see on the left, for restaurants down below. And these courtyard shutters are made from recycled wood that's found on the existing rooftop. We made different visual connections of unexpected spaces, not only to help one discover and explore, but also to provide more flexibility to the interior spaces. So from different ramps, you move up and down the atrium, you just see like different parts of the building as if you were moving through the city. So this compromise the room interiors because they have to be smaller, but I think we encourage the guests to wander about in the private rooms and prompted more chance meetings of people like you would in a city, like when you're walking around the city. And you will find lots of stairs, some that lead to nowhere like this one, as a way to remind you the history of the building and maybe also the city. And if you find nothing, don't worry, just leap up another flight of stairs. And that's a quote by, anyone know who? Franz Kafka. So the next project is about 20 minutes drive from that waterhouse. This is in Jing'an district, a central commercial zone in Shanghai. And unlike the water house, it was sanctioned to be preserved. So water house was meant to be demolished. This one's meant to be preserved as a testament to what the British built here during the concession era. If you don't know the concession era, it's when the Europeans move into China, especially in Shanghai. They set up shop, different zones, and protect it as if they owned that part of the city. And it was built by the British as their police headquarters. And within the police headquarters compound, this black and white photo from when it was opened in 1910 is really fascinating because you can see a lot of colonial subjects, and many of them look like they're from India. So the joke is part of their job was to keep the Chinese out. And as many preserved buildings go here in China, the interior was free to be reconstructed as reusable and useful. So when given the task to redesign the interior into a design gallery, we were excited to see the spatial potentials it offered. So I'll show you some before, after images. Black and white is before and color is after. So even though the facade is obviously preserved from the exterior, it is transformed from being a simple enclosure into a charged spatial threshold. From the deliberate act of demolishing floor slabs, we were able to create these dramatic atriums out of former corridors. Some architectural remnants are archived in different ways, not meant to be preserved, but to be put on display, like a collective longing for the past, to bring focus to what Svalana Bohm calls reflective nostalgia, where a critical distance is maintained between the past and the future. Ultimately, our aim is not to restore an image of the past or freeze history as is, but to create a dialogue between the imagined past and the present moment to produce a new and subjective reading of history.
So the second pairing that we have chosen is called contain and disperse. The act of containment is instinctively understood in architecture as a means to enclose and shelter. To contain implies that a certain boundary, border, or perimeter is first drawn to demarcate a space. Containment is related to a desire to reinforce an object's status and celebrate its existence by protecting and shielding. It retains its own objecthood. In contrast, the act of dispersal works to undo and deconstruct notion of objecthood. Rather than delineating clear boundaries, strategies of dispersal blur and dissolve threshold. So the first project we're going to show you in this pairing is a relic shelter, Fuzhou Tea House, which is actually about 2 hours from my ancestral home. So this holds a very special, this project means quite a bit to me. The project draws inspiration from an imagery uniquely associated with the city of Fuzhou, which is the Jinsan Temple. This is a rare example of a temple structure built in the middle of a river in China. John Thompson was one of the first photographers ever to travel to the country and provided Western audiences with some of the first glimpses into the Far East. Professor Wu Hong cites Thompson's work as those images that gave the world the first visual of a ruined building in China, since they were absent from traditional painting. In the album Fuzhou and the River Main, which has documented his legendary document, Journey Up the Min River, Thompson captured the ancient structure in its original slate, sitting on this kind of momentous rock, resting serenely above it, and this was recorded in 1871. This would become a lasting image identified with the city of Fuzhou, where our next project is situated. The owner of this particular project initially asked us to do this beautiful library for his development, and then it turned into something even more complex. He bought a structure relocated not from Fuzhou, but from Anhui, which is closer to Shanghai, and said, "Oh, you already finished your design. Can I just insert this old structure in there?" We both froze and we go, "This is absolutely crazy." We said, why don't we do this? Why don't we come back and redesign another structure that can celebrate this old structure, but at the same time, have a renewed sense of your new library, your new destination, your new clubhouse, for lack of a better description. He was happy because I didn't charge him more money. And of course, my wife was not very happy about that. That's why I'm asked to present this project. So this project illustrates containment. We're in the original ruin structure, as you can see in that axon, dating back to the Qing dynasty, is treated as a precious artifact around which a new building is erected to house it. Physically contained in this new structure, the relationship between new and old structure is one of contrast, but also a complement one. The entire building is conceived as a relic shelter, an enclosure that enshrines the architectural ruin as an object of display, but at the same time, an object that one can hopefully experience, not just from the ground floor, but from all of the floors. So you can see the floor plan, the new house that's sitting on that rock. So that old structure, as you can see from the slit, is nested, tilted in an interior of the building, so you can actually see the old building from the street. Capping off this intricate network of passages is a copper-clad roof, which hovers that presence, and it kind of both glorifies the new building, but at the same time also celebrates the old building. Interestingly, in the cover of Domus, Jean Nouvel asked that question: Are we entitled to modify the past? Thank you, Rossana. I was about to speak in Chinese, but okay. Are we entitled to modify the past? Which was a curious introspection on his part. So let me just show you the film. So this project is named Relic Shelter because it internalizes and contains that piece of distinct artifact, a wooden house structure from the Qing dynasty. It is seen from out above when you're walking down the street, but at the same time, when you enter, there's that constant dialogue between the old and the new. It is only up until the second level where you actually can see the magnitude of this old structure. And obviously down below, the ram earth is done in a way wherein it reads like a rock, a solid carving for the house to sit on. I see 17 minutes, so I'm gonna go to the next project. My apologies. So sorry. It's like you paid $1 for the movie and whoo, I just caught it. That's the terrible. So it's a marathon, 17:22. But I'll tell, oh, I like that. Oh, I like the Mexican way. Okay, very good. Free tapas after this, guys, for being patient with us. So that's the second project. We have 8 projects. Thank you, Poncho. So the second project is called the Brick Wall, Qingpu Yangzhou Retreat. This is the site as we were given, next to the slender West Lake. So the client was quite a visionary. He argued that historically important buildings should not just be left for the government who's only interested in the big city like Shanghai, Beijing, Chengdu, the Great Wall, where all the pandas are, or where the Great Wall is, or the Forbidden City, and that he argues that 80% of the historical important building in China are all in the rural area. And this was one of the conditions. And yet a lot of the villages have left it to rot. And so he argues that in order to rejuvenate villages, not only are you completely changing the way we approach historical preservation, but also we give livelihood to the people in the villages. And so he had 10 projects. He hired 5 Chinese architects and 5 Japanese architects. We were quite lucky because we were the second one to complete this, and then COVID hit. So the program was to design a 20-room wellness retreat. The site, obviously, as I was sharing with you, has been dilapidated. And so what we did was we traveled to Yangzhou, where this city is. And this was very important to us, this garden. This is a crucial reference for our project. It is a private garden built by a salt merchant. Like many other classical Chinese gardens, Guyan is a manifestation of the Taoist ideal of being one with nature. And so we decided that this idea of courtyard, the houses, was very important for this project. So the most memorable feature from our visit was this firewall, and it became the conceptual foundation for our project. It also quite auspicious because it has a lot of meaning. If you know the Chinese meaning of it, it also means you're racing in your ranks, and you're also getting rich. So with this strategy of this idea of courtyard and the alleyway, we decided, what if we use this as a formation to take over this remnant, this ruin? We have to adopt the footprints of the ruin, which is very strange. The building, they say you can demolish, but the footprints we need to keep. And so with that in mind, this was the footprint that was given to us. You can kind of see the slender lake up above. And of course, the building was all in disarray, dilapidated. And so what we did was quite simple. We did a grid, taking Guyan, the garden, the merchant's house, the courtyard, and the alleyway, and recreated it. Obviously not sort of didactically similar. We imposed this grid to give not an order, but using it as a connector to tie the buildings together, forming a network of fortified walls and covered walkways. And so this was the site plan and the floor plan at the same time. You see this aerial view, you see this orthogonal orientation. The West Lake is quite beautiful. This was before, this was right after construction. I just took my Princeton students there 2 weeks ago, and the vegetation was very wild. And it's quite interesting as a project, and you can kind of see how this mat building actually worked quite well in this particular context. We also use recycled brick from 5 different villages, and you see different bricklayers that came and actually thank us while we were doing this project, because most of them were from cities, and they were not very happy where they are, and they actually come back and be able to experience a new renaissance and be closer to their home. We start with this aerial view where you see a clear orthogonal orientation. The gridded walkways are inspired by the fire lanes, as I described. They work to organize zone, guide circulation, define and wrap functional spaces within. The adjacent ponds and waterways, called the Slender Lake, became part of the total landscape. What was once dilapidated now has gone back to its magnificent landscape. It's like the act of borrowing view from the Jiangnan Garden design strategy. Nearly the entire project is composed of recycled bricks, collecting from surrounding villages, and are reassembled on site as pathways connecting buildings, land views, and people. By dispersing reclaimed materials, the act of destruction of another relic becomes part of the new building and gives fresh relevance to the discarded construction waste. Dispersion in this project applies to the spatial organization, since all the courtyards are scattered within the matrix of the wall grids. These functional spaces also disperse and contain at the same time, creating a landscape approach where the visitor experiences unfolding vignettes that recur episodically throughout their journey. Thresholds are less defined, boundaries less clear, blurring the lines between inside, outside, public, private, the old and the new. They also form a kind of a new garden, one that defies the Jiangnan garden heritage, in revealing the paradox of the artificial organic, blurring the zone between natural and man-made. We saw this project as a chance to recast a new vernacular, rooted in the past, but ushering the future in a critical way. Bringing a part of Yangzhou's history, where courtyard and alleyways are prevalent everywhere in the old town, bringing a part of this memory, bringing a life to a village that in an area that was once discarded, bringing jobs to the people, bricklayers that would oftentimes be in cities not knowing the meaning and purpose of their lives. We realize that our role and our job in creating this project is more than just an architectural one. It is one in which memory is brought back and architecture becomes a part of their life.
Sorry if you feel like you're in school. We prepared a lot of different ideas. So this is a strange pairing maybe for some of you thinking about architecture, but what I was just talking about, the idea of presence and absence. This pairing is exploring the tension between the thresholds and boundaries of these two things, and then trying to generate different spatial constructs. So if you remember Martin Heidegger in his seminal text, Building, Dwelling, Thinking, he talks about this boundary not as a point of termination, but a point where presencing begins. So many of our projects, they use oppositions to heighten and reveal the dialectics of inside, outside, hard to whole. The notion of absence or void for us is mainly related to the Chinese concept of runophilia that I had just described earlier. So this project we named The Void, and I think it will be very clear to you. It's about 3 hours east of Beijing in a place called Qinghuangdao, pretty far from Shanghai. And the client is a visionary developer that believes in developing communities outside of major cities. So he's created this community pretty far from any major city, and now I think it's filled with tourists, and it's really given this new village a thriving future. And the original sketches here, they show some of the intentions of creating an atrium looking at the sky and filling the courtyard with a body of water. And the exhibition space here, you can see it's an exhibition gallery originally for art, and then it became like a performance theater that incorporates this public space, integrating the sky, the rain, because these are kind of like the only nature that we have, because it's supposed to be a seaside village, but then we're nowhere close to the sea. And that was just like a strategy that we wanted to use. And it was on the cover of Arquitectura Viva. We were very happy about that. So here the atrium is the void that creates the architectural presence. The art center looks inward into this void to connect with the only nature. So it access to the sky, the air, the wind, and the rain. And the art gallery spaces, they accommodate art viewing, but also takes your view upwards towards the sky. The atrium becomes a pool when it rains, but it's also a venue for performances, and that center is the atrium. Within the thick massing of the building volume is a series of interlocking spaces that visitors can meander freely within, where a journey is choreographed with directed views both towards inside and also outward towards the sky, and also kind of views of neighboring buildings. This next project is Shanghái Duality, is a malt whiskey distillery in Emeishan. Emeishan is very close to Sichuan. In Sichuan is very close to Chengdu. So if you know hot spicy food from China, that's the place. So it's a competition that we won about 6 years ago. The client was the French spirits giant Pernod Ricard, aiming to create the first major Chinese whiskey for the global market. And we used nature as our primary inspiration, relying on an absence of the icon. And I will explain what that means. So the concept for the design was based on building a relationship with this mountain. This mountain range is very sacred. It's an iconic image for the Chinese Buddhism. And so everyone in China knows about it. Even though the French, I think they were very skeptical about us wanting to use this as an icon. And so the French, they asked for a Scottish icon instead, right? Because this is going to be whiskey, and whiskey is from Scotland. But instead we say no, that's not going to be appropriate in China. You're building the first whiskey brand in China. So we feel like it has to be rooted in the cultural memories of the Chinese. And so we gave them 3 pairings and 3 dualities. So the first pairing is 始末, which literally means start and finish, implying a timeline of heritage, history, and nostalgia. And the second pairing is 清冽. So these are words that are pairings. 清 means clear and 烈 means strong, which is also meaning the crafting of making whiskey. From pure water to strong spirit, there's that crafting, that time, and also needs to be even though it seems like they're contradictory, but it's layered. When they're layered together, it means a complex temperament of spirits or personality. So, you know, when you drink whiskey, there are different personalities in taste. And the third one, 山水, literally means mountain and water. And even though they're kind of, separate things, water and mountain seemingly contradicting also, but when you put them together as a pairing of words in Chinese, it actually means landscape. And it means landscape in a very poetic way. So this is the site. And we used, again, primitive geometry and the form of the circle and the square, but this time not only as volumes rising from the earth, but sunken and carved into the ground. Sorry, this is the site, and this is the different geometries that we use. And also we made our own mount into architecture, so creating our own monument. The base material is made with a variety of concrete bricks and stone, which resonates with the strong mineral presence. And this is that sculptural mount. It became the only icon, the architectural icon, that is seen from every part of the journey. And inside, there's inside that circular mound, you can walk in the round and look down or look up. This is the tasting room. And originally not convinced, to the point of us almost quitting the project, because we insisting on this absence of the Scottish icon, arguing that you have your best icon in that mountain, that amazing Lemay mountain. And when the distillery opened, I think about 2-3 months ago, the client, actually Pernod Ricard, they sent their entire leadership team over. They saw this view of the mountain. This is the final sequence in the visitor view. You walk out of the restaurant after you've tasted the different whiskeys, and then before you go up, you actually see the view that's being framed.
So the next pairing is called stitch and incise. To illustrate the pairing of stitch and incision, 2 projects are selected which feature a vertical stair connection. But the 2 vertical connection are quite different in Tianzifang private residence. an internal staircase becomes the spine for organizing the domestic spaces, which oscillate between private and public. The staircase also connects between the communal and the individual, but also operates and separates the sacred, the bedroom, and the profane, the bathroom. The other project will take that stairway and make it a communal space in itself. Both stitching in nature, perhaps the purpose ever so slightly different. So this is a split house. Was an interesting project we were given. This is one of those popular lane houses in Shanghai. Many of them have been demolished. So a hybrid of urban typology left by some French. Actually, half of it is French and half of it is British. So our strategy was to rethink the typology of the lane house, keeping the split level, which is a very common thing, but inserting a stair and a skylight to celebrate the prominence of that circulation and social focal point, which you see in comic books. So it's a very straightforward insertion, and you can see this insertion from the outside. This was actually one of our first few projects. The first two Rossana presented, and this one. Here you see the two new stairs side by side. The bathrooms, conceivably the most intimate spaces of each apartment, are inserted next to the most public stairway. And I can tell you a story later. This was a client who later, unfortunately, passed away, had wanted us to do something that would make him and two of his friends be closer whenever they visit Shanghai. Of course, when someone gives you that brief, you don't ask them why. So I did this idea of using the bathroom as this connector, as being part of this stairway. However, the city is also open to private viewing, like as if the room itself is very much part of the city. The performative nature of barring view is considered here, thinking that is peripatetic and ambiguous. This proto-cinematic experience wherein space is not as a result of a static representation, but a mobile element in constant mutation. Visitors physically moving through its convoluted and intricately linked spaces. We use the stair to string together a series of views combined with the movement of the body. Architecturally, the decorative articulation added over the last 60 years were stripped off, and large openings were created on the front elevation to improve light qualities to the more radical public rooms of each floor. The second project takes a similar approach to using incision and stitching as formal strategy, but yielding a very different result. We are in the south of China, in a place called Nantou, Shenzhen. Nantou is the old financial district in Shenzhen. It is known as a city without a history down south, but there is a vibrant urban village where this is situated. Characters like winding alleyways, you see in the pictures, hidden corners, dead ends, narrow gaps between buildings are urban inspiration for all of us. So we were to intervene on an 8-story tall existing building. Wonko, the developer, actually had taken over 300 of this building and said, we have to renovate this historically old business district. And they hired 20 what they considered architects that would do cultural buildings. The rest were rather simple. So you see MVRDV's buildings to the right, Sijima's actually to the left, and Urbanus is that red building, and we were given this yellow building. So this 8-story tall existing building to transform it into 11-room guest house. So this was what we were given. And I was really quite nervous. And of course, my very smart partner told me, we have to keep everything intact. I go, are you crazy? Including the AC and the plastic frame windows. So we compromised. I remove all the plastic. I said, I'll give you all the tile, and all the broken tile, we will patch it like scars. We will patch it with concrete, and then the rest, we will wrap it. And so this was the result. To cut or to open up is not only about destruction, but also about creating new spaces and meaning. Tucked within the intricate alleyways of densely urban village rise this building. So as Dan Graham observed in the Mata Clark's 1975 work, Conical Intersect, the methodical building cuts served dual purpose. With the aid of the periscope, viewers could look not only into the interior of the Mata Clark sculpture building, but through the conical borings to these other buildings that embody the past and present eras of Paris. And so you can kind of see what we did. This image is very similar to the Tianzifang private residence, but of course it's quite different. You see the patching. These are beautiful pictures taken by actually Pedro Peganotti. Old and new are juxtaposed throughout the building to celebrate ruins, not just as symbols or reminders of the past, but following Boehm's assertion that ruins can take on a different logic, which is not romantic, not baroque, not melancholic, but a form of toleration of this harmony. And you sort of see us celebrating the neighbor that once the stairway that leads to the tenement now has been cut open and expanded to create this new vertical courtyard. So this is actually a new image I just put. She doesn't know, so she's making noises to me saying, "Why are you saying that?" You see? So that happens with partnership. And for us to last this long is amazing. Okay. But it also serves as a vertical connection to the roofs above, you see? It's very hard, not just to deal with deadlines, but I hear little sounds from her. So the different rooms, the different configurations, but we're an interdisciplinary practice. So the tub and all the sink, we actually design, and we managed to convince the client. So we lift you up to the top floor. Now I have lost my sense of track of what I'm about to say. So we take the visitors from the ground level alley up to the public roof garden. So this is the public entrance. This is the axonometric drawing showing you what we're trying to do. And I'm going to show you with something very important. This is actually the first time we collaborated with our son. So he did this video for us. He's a filmmaker based in Shanghai. So the first time we did this project, it was very difficult and challenging. But the cuts you see here in the city becomes the new staircase. A new metal skin makes a new layered facade. Moments of detailed encounters with material, texture, magnify the contrast and tension of old and new. The past and present are juxtaposed throughout the building to celebrate ruins, not just as symbols, but asserting that ruins can take on a different logic. One that is not romantic, as I said, based on what Leonard Boehm talks about, not melancholic, but a form of toleration of disharmony.
Okay, just to explain to you why I was laughing the whole time, because I have no idea about the presentation that he just made. We worked on these separately, and so anyway, I was pleasantly surprised. Very, very, very good.
Thank you.
Good job, good job.
Very few times I get, you know why I have to do good work? Because I hardly get any compliments. From my father, I don't get compliments. From my wife.
Okay,
and from my children, I get compliments.
That's so untrue.
Okay. Okay.
The next pairing, figure ground. Everyone knows this. Everyone study architecture. You've heard a lot about this. This is a different kind of figure ground. So it's a recurring theme in our work, and it's about this massing manipulation, which is a lot like carving voids, sometimes to reinforce that notion of figure ground. And on the one end of the spectrum, we strive for legible forms of permanence, so you can see clearly that it's a figure, right? An object. But on the other, a deference to spatial plasticity that challenges the singular reading. So it's not just about that object, but maybe there's a way to look at one object that could be a figure or it could be a ground. So this is a house of remembrance. It's in Singapore, and it's the commission was to create a house to accommodate 3 siblings, and they are now young adults. They have outgrown their current house. They also have recently lost their mother to a terrible accident when the family was traveling and vacationing in Alaska due to a sudden explosion. And a little background on Singaporean kind of architectural typology. the bungalow as a housing typology is a hybrid. It's a departure from the stately British colonial homes and the indigenous Malay style of houses that are built on stilts, fit for a tropical weather. Some of those features, they include large verandas, hanging slope roofs, balconies, louver windows, all functional due to the context that it exists in. And here you can see a diagram showing the spatial division, exploded axo showing the three main parts of the house: the garden, the land, the communal living, and private rooms. So the figure ground here is an open-ended kind of interpretation. The roof is the figure and the garden land as a ground, right? But also they're carved within to allow different alternative readings. This is a model. And the traditional Chinese courtyard house, or 四合院, is a typology that is well known for expressing Confucian ideals. So, and the Confucian ideal is about a family, and I think this happens in many other parts of the world, maybe in Mexico here. It's a family that is not just a single family unit, but it's extended, kind of multiple generations of family living under one roof. And it's still very popular within Chinese families in China as well as Southeast Asia. So the client's unique requests were, number one, that the house is to be constructed in the place of the existing house. And the second, it should accommodate all three siblings, grown adult siblings. And the third, it should include a small memorial in the form of a garden in memory of their late mother. And she was an avid gardener. And so we explore how notions of communal living, that, these different generations, they are living together collectively to remember their mother, and how that can be expressed spatially. The pitch roof is used to embrace and accentuate the courtyard in the middle. The house is 2-story, and all the communal spaces are on the ground level, surrounding the central garden, the memorial, which is that central garden. And the circulation is based on the shape of the circle to reinforce the walk in the round, like in a sacred memorial. The horizontal visual transparency is maximized here. The living room, the open kitchen, the dining room, and the study. So you can see the garden from any of these rooms. Large sliding doors also allow for the garden's cross ventilation. Vertical transparency is more intentional here. Looking down at the kitchen is this view, and then upper level is tucked under the pitch roof so that from the outside you actually can't see any of the rooms. Here you see again a different type of visual transparency. Horizontal engages nature, right? And then the vertical engages the family interaction. More sectional interplay. And the symbolic garden is the heart of the family, a figure that occupies the void. The circle has no edge, no termination, and allows a strong sense of spirituality. And the next project is in Seoul. So now we go to a different part of Asia. And the literal and mythological meaning of the lantern is highly significant here. Sometimes when we work on a project, we like to use kind of objects to lead us into the understanding of certain kind of mythologies. And here, the lantern, it gives you light when you're walking in the dark. It also shows the way, indicating a beginning and the ending of a journey. And this is a project for Sawasu. Sawasu probably is not very popular here, but in Asia, it's hugely popular because they claim to have the beauty cream that makes you look forever young. So we thought, giving this beauty cream its first home, this brand house, what does it mean? I think anyone who is looking for beauty likes to look at themselves, but also the beauty is a journey that you are in search of that forever youth, that youthful fountain. And I'm just going to go very quickly to our video. So this is an existing building, and the existing building was built by Korean architect Hiroji. It was built in 2003. And we needed to transform the experience of the building, but we need to still respect this original architecture. So we talked about this idea of occupying the poche, sort of imagining a poche that allows transparency, but occupies physical space so you can't move through it, right? So this lattice work that you see kind of everywhere is light, delicate, and also becomes a symbol of that lantern. And we also hang a lot of different kind of mirrors, so people who are in search of youth, they can look at themselves all the time. And also creates this otherworldly spectacle, this identifiable journey, beginning to the end, search for beauty, and also for the brand to claim.
So to understand this last pairing of mass and reveal, the concept of pentimenti is useful. Pentimenti is defined in art history as a presence of traces of previous work and is rooted in the word repent or forgiveness. By massing and revealing portions of a built artist's work, we experiment with preservation and adaptation to uncover a non-romantic logic for celebrating ruins. Architectural remnants pose important questions to architects in terms of sustainability and construction waste management, as well as more philosophical questions of originality, authenticity, and authorship. Operating with pentimenti in mind, we see some of our work engaging with traces of the past authors, builders, even failed projects, and abandoned construction to uncover narratives of non-realized compositions. Building can be hybrid, products of past inhabitations, even imagined futures. So this particular first project I want to show you is called a chapel in a new development. The idea of masking a simple box that seems introverted and revealing and revealing at night in its luminosity was very important to us. We were asked to come up with a chapel that will become the icon for this development that I just showed you. So this left drawing is from Wu Guangzong, a great painter in this particular area in left. So showing a painterly rendition of a particular kind of vernacular sublime, characteristic of the white walls and gray clay tiles found in the Jiangnan water towns. Interestingly, he has modernized the traditional ink brushstrokes with watercolor, creating a new way of representation not seen before. So we were looking at this integration of ink brush with watercolor, marveling at the sensibility of this new medium against the old ink tradition, and wanted to see how, through architecture, through the idea of masking and revealing, that perhaps we could find a unique articulation of such kind of representation. So I'm going to show you this box, and also beside this particular box, we also created this beautiful stairway that leads you up to the rooftop, which is equally important for this project. I have a film to show you. The bricks here are, again, recycled. Someone had asked me, how did we get this black-gray brick the other day? And we said, actually, it's all over the villages in the rural area in China. And oftentimes it's discarded because it's considered poor in terms of its, not so much quality, but poor in terms of its representation. And we thought by bringing different communities together, that this chapel, there is really no religion, technically not allowed, but this developer is using this as a way, as a multi-function area. And let me just go to the last project, I promise you. I'm not gonna ask Punto to come back again. And this will be the last time you will see us here, and then we fly tomorrow if you have problems. So we call recast project for a pastry shop called Lao Ting Fong in Beijing. We were called to convert an old cotton textile factory and warehouse to a gallery and headquarters for an old pastry brand from Tianjin. This brand was founded in 1911 called Lao Ting Fong. And so the design is inspired in part by the client's main product, which is this traditional pastry formed in a decorative mold. The notion that a container may form and hold the shape of its contents within, then through masking and revealing, create an interesting spatial juxtaposition between the old. So we realized that this could be an interesting potential. The train track here shown in this particular older transportation depot used to run through the site delivering raw materials. This was the building we inherited. Obviously, initially, we had wanted to do a series of buildings, but we quickly realized that the program was too large and mechanical, and to heat this whole building would be too expensive. So we decided a new strategy by creating this casting strategy. The gray shadings here are support spaces, and they are also marked by the use of new cast concrete. You see the section and the new cast building. Cast in place concrete here is like a new visual marker that reveals and masks. Considering the facade as a canvas, you can see what I mean by pentimenti. Sorry about that. Thank you. There she goes again. She's touching me. So, but she's right this time. Okay, what did I just say? Considering the facade as a canvas, you can see what I mean by pentimenti. And this is the building with a new office in cast concrete. Visual markers all over the place. Concrete as a means, as a method to insert, protrude, reveal. This constant dialogue of what is old and new. The new structure encased within the existing, as you can kind of see. Constant mitigation between the concrete shell and the existing masonry warehouse. Offices for the owner, his display area. Let me try here. So the building is left mostly intact as is, except the entry is encased in new layers of glass and metal. The concrete is molded into the existing brick walls. They form new rooms, doorways, window frames, ceiling cuts. This is the reception area as you enter, seeing that concrete structure, infill. It is only through experience the space will you be able to see the duality of this insertion. This is the pastry gallery, a new attempt to display traditional pastry in such a minimalist setting. Both the owner and us felt the past is represented by the presence of the old bricks, and maybe that's enough. The brick wall is often pulled back, forming a backdrop to the newly formed concrete rooms, either as stairs, corridors, office, or training rooms, also double-story atriums, like this reveal, which you will see in a minute. In a sectional way, how the new function works with the existing brick envelope. Rooftop offer cuts into the concrete for sunlight and fresh air. While the concrete itself operates like a surface covering its main objective, it is not to conceal or obscure, but rather to reveal existing structure and imperfection. The new concrete complete the walls, enable function to make the space work. What is revealed isn't only the marking of existing wall composition, but also the local, low-tech roughness of construction. By exploiting the plasticity of a simple material like concrete, the derelict wall is transformed into an inscribed surface. In this way, the project serves as a new site, a palimpsest for recording the past and present, an assemblage of non-ornamental incrustation, embellishments, and new vessels for inhabitation. Sarah Whiting challenges the term adaptive reuse in the article she wrote on our project in Domus magazine, offering another terms, seamless synthesis as her preference to meaning something that unlocks intellectual horizon and other worlds of particular magical precision. White synthesis that is not meant to mask or distract, but neither is it meant to call attention to itself. Hopefully with this and the other projects we have shown today, with cross divides between the past and the future, between typologies, between locations and cultures, between traditional design practice and alternative programs and functions, we are able to bring forth new meanings to architecture by its ability to construct new relationship, and circling back to what Rossana quoted a while ago from Terence Hawke's words, perceive those that are between them. Perhaps it is the marginal spaces from here to there, the pairings and the duality that we find new meanings and purpose in architecture. We are grateful that you allowed us to share with you today as part of our journey. Sometimes a very lonely journey trying to convince clients, government, students, colleagues, and even family members the importance of finding purpose and meaning in what we do. But in many ways, this is a journey to head home. We will leave you with a poem, and a poem I want to read with you, which I think is very important. It's titled, The Last Homecoming. I have returned there where I had never been. Nothing has changed from how it was not. On the table, on the checkered tablecloth, half full, I found again the glass, never filled. All has remembered just as I have never left it. Thank you very much.
Ha sido una larga, pero intensa y muy satisfactoria jornada de 3 días o de 2 días y medio. Hemos tenido la oportunidad de tener lo que les prometí desde el principio, que eran estos insumos que nos iban a generar emociones diversas entre admiración, frustración, pero al final lo más importante es que nos permite revisarnos a nosotros en la manera como entendemos nuestra arquitectura o la vida en general, a partir de este mosaico tan variado y tan lleno de nuevas perspectivas, panoramas y riquezas. Entonces, tuvimos una serie de mesas redondas que, si bien no tenían un guión, parece que los arquitectos no necesitan un guión para abrir nuevas conversaciones y nuevos universos. La primera, gracias a Jesús, hablamos de un vínculo que parecía que no había dentro de las pláticas y había un hilo común de geometría, y cómo la geometría desde la disciplina nos ayuda a ir resolviendo problemas. Si bien reconocimos que esos problemas no resolvían los retos que tiene nuestro planeta, como se planteó en la última mesa, por lo menos nos vuelve modestos, humildes, al reconocer que no somos los únicos. Sería muy ingenuo y sería muy soberbio pensar que los arquitectos vamos a resolver todos. Formamos parte de una comunidad, de una sociedad, de un sistema más amplio, que tendremos que ser complementarios y que tenemos que trabajar entre todos para resolver los retos que tenemos. De eso trató la tercera mesa, la de hoy, un poco sobre los retos del arquitecto, la arquitectura, y la de ayer fue bastante interesante también a partir de las ponencias y las presentaciones, abordando mucho el tema sobre la memoria y cómo hay tantas capas con las que estamos trabajando al hacer una proyección, y todas esas herramientas para poder construir no nada más una solución para a quienes damos respuesta con la arquitectura, que yo diría, y lo estábamos diciendo hace rato, el cliente directo, quien nos contrata. Tenemos un compromiso ético y moral para resolver cabalmente sus necesidades, pero al resolver ese problema también estamos resolviendo o atendiendo las demandas y necesidades de todo el contexto que está alrededor, que es nuestra sociedad, nuestras ciudades, nuestros territorios. Y si fuera eso poco, bueno, pues esas obras que dejemos construidas pues materializarán los valores en los que queremos como sociedad y dejarán el legado a las siguientes civilizaciones. digo, como civilización a las siguientes generaciones. Así que hemos pasado por un sinnúmero de experiencias, de emociones, de saberes que me siento muy feliz de que hayamos compartido. Voy a empezar ya con algunos mensajes y agradecimientos. Primero que nada, hay una fiesta en Qatar para todos los asistentes. Con su pulsera pueden entrar. Número 2, se nos ocurrió poner un papel craft allá en el pasillo por si quieren dejar recomendaciones, saludos, recuerdos. Están invitados estaremos muy contentos de leer sus mensajes y que nos sirva también de aprendizaje. Voy a tener que empezar, obviamente, primero por agradecer a nuestros aliados en este proyecto, el gobierno del Estado, con la Secretaría de Cultura. Muchas gracias, Gustavo, y la Secretaria de Cultura, que no está con nosotros el día de hoy. Y seguido de eso, pues este congreso, que espero hayan disfrutado mucho, no hubiera sido si no hubiéramos tenido la fortuna de contar con los maravillosos arquitectos que nos acompañaron. Entonces los voy a nombrar y les voy a pedir que les demos un caluroso aplauso. Voy a empezar conforme a las presentaciones. Desgraciadamente no están aquí, pero también se merecen un muy buen aplauso. El colectivo 733. Y si están y se pueden parar, también se los voy a agradecer a los arquitectos. Carlos Albornoz, de Tuñón y Albornoz. Mi queridísimo Luis Aldrete. Nuno Brandao. Bill Silión. Balsa Croceto Piazzi. Palinda Canangara. Marlon Blackwell. Muchas gracias. Manuel Cervantes. Tami Videgaard. Muchas gracias. Neri&Hu. Quiero agradecer a la familia extendida de Casa de Arquitectura que también se dio cita el día de hoy, viniendo de diferentes ciudades, empezando por nuestros embajadores de Houston, Jesús Vasallo y Carlos Jiménez. Muchas gracias. Otro embajador que nos acompañó, que presentó el año pasado, José Carlos. ¿Está por ahí, José Carlos? Así también como Macías Peredo, Chavo y Maggie, muchas gracias por venir. Y todas las otras oficinas que han estado aquí con nosotros, se los agradecemos mucho. Ahora es el momento solamente para dar un reconocimiento, creo que muy merecido, a todas las personas que han estado atrás de este evento para que funcionara lo mejor que se pudo. Una disculpa por aquellas cosas que no funcionaron, pero le pido por favor a todos los jóvenes de staff que me ayuden y que pasen aquí al frente. A todo el Consejo de Casa de Arquitectura. Si me acompañan acá adelante también se los voy a agradecer. Y finalmente, con mucho cariño y mucho agradecimiento para mí, a mis socios, a Pirri, Alfonso Jiménez y a María de los Ángeles, mi hermana. Angie, ¿no está? Ahí viene. Muchas gracias a todos por estar con nosotros. Con todo el cariño y el agradecimiento, nos vemos aquí el año que entra. Todos están invitados. Y que, digamos, no se termina la fiesta, seguimos todavía en la noche de fiesta. Muchas gracias a todos, que tengan muy buena noche.